Hello, party people.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Kyle.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
How you been this week?
Tired.
Been tired?
Yes, I've
Why?
been tired.
I can't imagine why you're feeling tired this week.
There's no reason for me to be tired.
Mm-mm.
Nothing that's going on
You
in
have-
the news at all.
You have no rights. I don't know why you would be
Right.
tired.
What should I be tired of? You know me, just love to be, a woman in the house. Just,
Yeah.
All these things that the government tells me to do.
Right. The cooking, the
Right.
cleaning,
Right.
procreating,
Procreating, yes.
the three ings of womanhood.
Right. Exactly.
Mhm.
That's it. But yes,
Yeah.
tired.
So I'll start referring to you as of Justin
Yes.
and greeting.
As of like Handmaid's
right.
Tale.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you ready for your like the ritual they do where you'll have your handmaid? Or I guess would you be the handmaid or will you be?
So I'm not.
Justin will be a commander.
I won't lie to you. I've never watched Handmaid's Tale. I think it's way too real for me. I can't watch it.
Well, it is now.
Our friend Claire recommended me to watch it a very long time ago, and I told her I could not watch it.
Now's not the time
No,
to start.
I told Claire I cannot watch this show.
No.
It's too real for me. So I know lightly of it,
Well,
and I know that.
Let me tell you about this ritual they do.
Oh gosh.
So there's the commanders, which are the white people running the country,
Yeah.
right? And so
Are they old too?
some they're definitely not.
Old white men from the South.
Probably.
okay.
And so the women can't have children, only very few, and those are the handmaids.
Gotcha.
And so each commander house has a handmaid. And so what they do is they do this little ritual when the handmaid is ovulating, obviously. And they read from the Bible, which I don't think
What else did you read
it's
from,
not
I
like
guess?
our Bible, it's like
Their
their Bible.
Gotcha.
And so they do their little thing and then they go upstairs and the commander has sex with the handmaid with the wife holding her down. This is the future conservatives want.
That just sounds rotted.
So yeah, it's a little too real right now
too
to start
much,
the handmaid. I don't recommend.
Too much for
But
me.
they refer to the handmaids of and then the commander. So
Right,
you
I
would
know that,
be,
yeah, they say
so you would be
of,
of Justin.
And like blessed be the fruit.
Blessed be the fruit.
Right,
Mhm.
right, yes.
So,
I know that from a different TV show.
So when they greet each other, they say, hello, of Red. Or of Red. That was her name. Of Justin. Blessed be the fruit. And then the response is, under his eye.
Sounds like I'll be moving
It's coming.
to Canada
It's-
very soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Free healthcare.
Free help.
I mean, that's really like the number one thing for Canada right now. Well, good. I'm glad we're both tired about the same thing because it's not great out there.
It's really not.
No, it's bad.
It's really not. It's very confusing.
Yes.
I don't understand.
I don't understand either, and I don't have like a appropriate like I don't know what the right word is. I don't have good enough thoughts. I don't have articulated thoughts about it enough to say
Still in shock.
this is really bad
Mhm.
and I don't like it.
Right.
And that's about where I'm at with it.
Right. Because it's like, well, what's next?
The gays.
The-
The gays are next.
Not in this holy month. We
Yeah.
still have one
Yeah,
week.
that's true. This is not the month for this.
No.
I also thought that. I said, I guess they're going to give the gays a break right now.
Yeah, but
come
they're
July.
July 1st, they're saying, no, no, no.
Yes, it's be aware.
Well, and it just kills me, too, that the one justice, is it Thomas?
Yeah,
Right?
probably. Yeah,
Justice
the one
that
who said we should look at gay marriage
Yeah.
again. Yeah, that's him. Yes.
I'm like, how do you're a person of color. How do you...
Well,
This happened to
not that
you
this is a
and...
political podcast, but you
Oh, I
also know
guess
that
that's
his
true, we
wife
shouldn't.
is part of like the January 6th mess too, right?
And isn't she white, too?
yes, she is.
So you don't think they're going to come for your interracial marriage at some point?
That's what the interwebs has been saying to him. I mean, I doubt that he looks at the interwebs, but
No, he's too busy
I-
burning the country to the ground. He doesn't
Right.
have time to get on Reddit.
right. Well, he probably doesn't know what Reddit is. He's also not.
He's a boomer.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not sure how old he is exactly. I'm sure he's at least in his 60s, if not older than that.
Mhm.
Most of the justices are on the older
Yeah.
side of it. But,
Yeah. I don't get it, though. I don't get it.
well, me either.
And it's tiring.
And
Tiring.
we're tired.
We're
of,
tired.
of it.
On that note.
On that note, we're starting a series.
A trilogy,
A
if
trilogy,
you will. Our own
yes.
trilogy.
It's going to be very, I think, informative and interesting. Do you want to tell everyone what it is?
Yeah, so we're going to do a trilogy on personality disorders.
Yay.
Because we realized in the first pod we refer to them.
Yes.
We are probably going to refer to them frequently, and
yes.
we need to educate the children.
Yes, I can't allow TikTok and all of the other social medias to do that for us.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it. I mean in an ethical way, naturally, because again, this pod is educational and ethical.
Professional. Humble,
beautiful, charming. And
exactly.
I think we probably need to talk about our disclaimer, don't we?
Yes, we need to disclaim.
We're not teaching y'all how to diagnose.
Right. We won't be going through the DSM criteria very deeply for lots of reasons, but we'll just leave it at that.
Not a DSM in sight.
No, not a DSM in sight. We're just going to talk about these personality disorders. We're just going to give some of the highlights of the diagnostic criteria. We may talk about certain criteria, not others. If you are really interested in this, I'm sure anyone could Google. You can go to Google University and find out.
Google University.
Yes, you can go to Google University. You can pick up a DSM. We're just going to talk about this sort of.
Or go to your local therapist.
That too, yes.
And ask them.
Our other disclaimer is if you hear something and that resonates with you very deeply, don't get too hung up on that.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to see like facets of yourself in each personality disorder. I remember when I don't know if you remember when you took your diagnostic class in grad school.
Oh, absolutely.
One day I sat in the class in the back, because I always sat in the back because I don't like to be the center of attention.
I can see that for you.
Back corner, closest, like the one closest to the door is basically where I would sit. And I sat there and I thought to myself, I identify with some of all of these, and this is very strange. And I don't know how I feel about this. And then I started working with people with personality disorders, and
never mind.
I was like, okay, I'm okay. It's fine.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about what makes a personality disorder, and we'll probably talk about diagnosing. What does that mean? And what are we looking for when it's a personality disorder versus maybe personality traits, or as I say, flavors.
Yes, sprinkles, flavors. Traits is I probably the most commonly used. Still, is it? I think
it's trait.
I think it is too.
Like personality traits.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with cluster A for this episode. There are 3 clusters. Cluster A is one of I have a few little happenings with cluster A, but so the personality disorders in this cluster are paranoid, schizoid, and schizotypal. So Kyle, you got any experience with the cluster A's?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that's the one thing about personality disorders is that people are not right. They don't wake up and go, "Oh, I think I have a personality disorder. I need to go to therapy." Not like they wake up like, "Oh, I'm really depressed," right?
Right, correct.
So, and I think these specifically are ones that you're not gonna find, at least in where I work.
I would say for these 3, most of the time you're not going to see them in treatment for lots of, and we will get into why you may not see them in treatment when we talk about each of them.
Or it may become clear as we talk. I don't know.
I think it will become very clear, at least for this cluster. Actually, all of the clusters, I actually think maybe cluster C will be the ones that would probably seek out treatment the most. But once we get to that one, we can talk a little bit more.
That. Yeah.
I have a very, 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 very small amount of experience with the cluster A's. I mostly have worked with people who had schizotypal, which is kind of on the psychosis-esque spectrum. Although a lot of people confuse, and we'll talk about it, a lot of people confuse like the psychosis and schizotypal with actual psychosis.
Well, and maybe that's something to talk about first, is that a lot of these the schizotypal, but I think so this one can look a lot like schizophrenia.
Yes, it
because
does.
You have those sort of breaks from reality. You maybe have some weird magical thinking.
Yes.
But that doesn't, with the personality disorder, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have schizophrenia. So it's more of these personality disorders are, I feel like my hic comes out when I say personality disorders. When you have a personality disorder, it's your relationships and how those look. So you have it can't just be like, oh, with your mom you're like this. It has to be with like everybody.
Yes. So How about let's just go right into it.
Okay.
Let's just go right into
What are we doing?
the paranoid personality disorder.
Well, do you want to do, so we also decided we'd come with like fake characters to kind of help everyone visualize what these are like.
Yes.
So should we wait till the end, or do you want to? Oh, okay, you're gonna wait till the end.
Then, because we can discuss if we think it would be accurate or
not. I see. Okay, all right.
Although, so paranoid is probably the one I would say you would never see in treatment.
No,
I've never talked to anybody or known anybody to work with somebody with paranoid personality disorder. So, like Kyle said,
not willingly.
Like Kyle said before, so when you're talking about a personality disorder, you're talking about a pervasive pattern. This is not something that's like Kyle said, like one, with my mom, I'm this way, or with this person, I'm this way, or once a year, I get really irritated and I do this. This is somebody who's been showing these symptoms for many years. And in fact, you might agree with me, I wouldn't even diagnose somebody with a personality disorder until they were at least 25 to 30 years old.
Well, I think diagnostically you can't until they're 18.
Right. So if you know any people under the age of 18 diagnosed with personality disorder, that is not ethical in my opinion.
No,
personally,
they're just shitty teenagers.
Yes. Yeah. So paranoid personality disorder is an interesting one because the person who is diagnosed with this has a very pervasive distrust and suspiciousness of other people. So they will always feel like they can't trust anyone. They have like strong opinions and thoughts that other people are trying to harm them, even though there's like no proof of this.
Yeah.
They will perceive non-threatening or just like kind of off the cuff remarks as very slights towards them or like personal attacks. They tend to typically be angry and hostile, especially when they think you're slighting them in some way. It's interesting. And they tend to hold grudges, which sometimes I'm like, oh, is this me?
Jackie has paranoid personality disorder.
Right. I'm going to go on TikTok.
Producer Justin is confirming that's true.
I'm going to go on TikTok and make a dance video and point to every symptom I have. And they also, I didn't remember this one, but one of the highlights of it is that they tend to suspect their romantic partner or their partner is always cheating on them with no proof. And I forgot about that one. So,
well, again, Jackie, it's these all relationships. So romantic,
right?
Friendships,
right?
I think it can be like, can it be like organization? Like you think like the government?
I think it can.
Or is that more getting into like a?
I mean, it's a distrust and suspicion of others. So it could. I mean, I think you could maybe extrapolate that to like government. Yeah. I don't. Like I said, I've never worked with someone with it, so I don't know how it exactly presents, because I would assume somebody who has this disorder would absolutely never seek treatment because they wouldn't trust
no
a therapist to talk to them.
You don't feel like in the prisons you saw this?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Mm-mm. No, the paranoia was mostly like a psychotic esque flair to it. I mean, you also have to think about context too. That's actually a really good point, because prison is a place where you're going to be paranoid and looking over your shoulder every minute of the day. So you have to think about that too.
Maybe that's adaptive,
right?
Or appropriate,
right? And I would say that's appropriate for the situation, but you got to look at context too. I think when you're doing when you're going to diagnose a personality disorder. But the fictional example that I found on the interwebs, because I couldn't really think of any myself to think of somebody, but it was Mad Eye Moody from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I believe it was the book version of Mad Eye Moody, not the movie version.
Yeah.
Because the movie version doesn't really have a whole lot. But and it's been forever since I've read the books. But
I got you. Don't worry.
Okay. I was to say the example was that he never drank or ate unless he
right. He carried his own flask.
Right.
That's how the.
Yes.
I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But that's spoiler alert. But that's how they took over and did the Polyjuice potion, right? Because he had his own flask, so it wasn't weird for him to do that.
Yes.
He always had charms and protections around his house.
Yeah.
I think in the books they talked about how he thought he was being attacked by dustbins and that they were dark wizards. It was something like that.
I read those books when they came out, so I've not read them since.
I probably read them 7 times, but I'm a nerd, so
I need to reread them.
You should reread them.
I know I want to.
But yeah, he he had all his little dark detectors and things, and just always thought people were coming to get him. But again, I mean, he was a famous Auror and he hunted dark wizards. So
right. So is that
appropriate?
Right.
I don't know. Was it extreme? Maybe.
Sure, it can be extreme though. I mean, the other thing you have to think about is it doesn't interfere with their functioning. That's like a huge part of diagnosing people, is if it's interfering in like the major domains of their life.
And can we throw this out here now? They're high functioning anxiety, high functioning depression. That's not a thing.
It's not real.
If it's high functioning, it's probably not. Yeah. You're probably just a little sad, right? Like
exactly, yes.
Because the part of the diagnostics in what we do is you can't function, or you really struggle to function.
Right.
So correct. High functioning depression, high functioning narcissism. Oh, we'll get to that. Or all, a hidden narcissist and all.
We'll get to that when we get to the cluster bees. That's going to be a fun episode.
Stop that. There's none of that. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
And I know we don't talk about real people, but I do want to bring this up because I thought it was very interesting. So when I was looking up for all of Paranoid PD, Hitler came up all the time because he really, I mean, again, though.
He probably had a couple.
I'm sure.
Maybe. Allegedly.
Yes.
I don't know. I can't say.
I'm sure, yes. And again, though, based on the things he was doing at the time, was he paranoid rightly so, or did he really have it? But a lot of websites that I looked at said that Hitler definitely would have been diagnosed with it, which I thought was interesting. So
I could see it. Yeah,
I could see it
I'd
too.
probably throw in a couple others. We'll talk about those next week.
Sure.
But well, I did Quinn and Joe Goldberg from You,
for Paranoid.
Yes, for Paranoid.
Okay.
I think
I could see Joe.
Mostly just with their relationship. Again, not diagnostically, it wouldn't make sense. They would definitely probably be more on the cluster B side of things. But they were always just so.
I don't know.
They always questioned each other.
You
right?
could make an argument for Joe, I think.
For Paranoid?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he was murdering people. Spoiler alert. He was murdering people. He was murdering people. So.
But it would be like I don't know, left the garage door open. And he'd be like, "Who are you leaving that up for?" Like, it was that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was a little intense.
But I think was it, Quinn, right? She was the other one. Am I getting the name right?
the one that, spoiler alert, he ended up marrying and having the baby with,
Yeah. Like, she got to that point, too, right? And she's locking people up in the basement. And
yeah, she was.
So, I mean, granted, again, they probably would have some other things going on there. But they were very, like, paranoid. Although sometimes I guess it was appropriate because they were both.
I mean, they were killing people.
They were killing
and doing
people
things that they shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's Paranoid.
Paranoid.
And then the second one, Schizoid. So this is an interesting one. I think this is what people think antisocial personality disorder is.
I was just going to say, this is like antisocial
and we'll
light.
talk about antisocial personality disorder because it's probably one of my favorite of the personality disorders. So schizoid is when you have absolutely zero, none, zilch interest in social or like personal relationships at all.
Romantic.
And you'd rather be alone. Yeah, romantic. You do not want to talk to anyone. You just don't care. You have like no emotional expression. You can't pick up social cues. It's different from autism spectrum.
Yeah.
And they don't like, they almost look indifferent or like kind of aloof or cold. Is maybe how I would describe it. Yes. And they also, another hallmark that I had forgotten, because it's been a long time since I've, gone to a DSM, was that they don't want to have sex with other people.
No, they want no human interaction basically at all.
Yes.
Like, they're good to just float in life and not deal with anything.
They probably thrived in the pandemic
era
we're in.
Absolutely. But I think, isn't there if I remember correctly, it's not in this sort of like they're kind of odd at the same time, right? Like, this isn't just like I'm good by myself. This is like there's something off with you.
Yeah, like schizoid and schizotypal tend to kind of like, it can be hard to discern between the two because of the similarities in that. Schizotypal's a little bit more on the odder side of the spectrum,
more of
but
the,
yes,
break from reality.
But but people with schizoid, I almost said schizotypal, schizoid would still be considered odd because they don't want to interact with other people.
But it's still more like logical, I guess.
Yeah, it's very much like, I don't want to talk to you. You're whatever. But fictional examples, one of which I don't know, I didn't tell you this one beforehand, but it was Squidward from SpongeBob SquarePants. Was one that I saw on the interwebs.
Okay.
I don't know that I fully agree, but I don't know that I disagree with it either, because he really didn't want to have anything to do with anybody else.
I mean, he was disenfranchised with
right
most of every society. Would you call that? Would Bikini Bottom be society?
Let's debate
that. Yeah.
I guess I would call it
Are
a society.
sponges people too?
Yes. I guess I would consider it a society because I mean that was their whole life.
I guess.
So, but yes, he was disenfranchised. But then like SpongeBob and Patrick tried to make friends with him, and he was like, "Get away from me." But was it because
they were obnoxious?
Right.
Though.
Yeah. So you got to think about that. I thought it was an interesting one.
Did he want to like date? I don't remember. No. Was there any like dating he ever did?
No, he just wanted to be in his house and play his clarinet, and that's all he wanted to do. And go to work at the Krusty Krab.
I know that he wanted to do that.
I don't think he wanted to do that either.
It did pay the bills.
Justin's shaking his head. Absolutely not. The other one, for example, which is Dexter from Dexter Morgan.
Yes.
See, I did not watch the show because it's too gory for me. Not the killing part. We have to just pretend like the killing part doesn't exist for the sake of this conversation.
That out. Yeah.
But I could see it. I watched the first episode, and that's all I watched. So I could see it based on the first episode. I don't know.
And you said I know everything about this season.
Yes. Yeah.
I think, again, he could fit into some other, the OCP, obsessive compulsive personality. We'll talk about that. Because he had a very rigid sort of moral code, and he couldn't break it, and everything. So, but yeah, I mean, he really didn't care about people up until he met, spoiler alert, his wife.
Right.
And had a baby.
Right.
And so he did love them, but even to him, he was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
I like them. Weird. Yeah, like literally he would.
Am I supposed to have feelings?
Yeah. Am I supposed to feel this way? Yeah. So yeah, I could see that.
I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I didn't really see any other ones that I really like thought or agreed with in a way.
So this is one I found this one online, but I don't know if I agree with it either. But Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I could. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This is one I looked up, and I don't know. I mean, have you seen Lord of the Rings?
No.
Oh, well, okay. Well.
I've seen parts of it. I know the story. Like I know the story. I know the plot. I know all of that. I could see Gollum. I could see that.
Yeah, because he doesn't really care about anything but the ring.
Right.
So he's, never interested in friends or romance or anything, but
never mind. I won't say it like that.
But he does have emotions though. Now I think because he's very like
you can have emotional expression. It's just your range is very limited.
Yeah.
With Schizoid. I don't know. I think I could see that.
Yeah, maybe some traits. Well, we didn't talk about Schizotipple.
Yes.
What do you...
This is the most probably interesting one, I think, of the cluster A's. So, yeah, Schizotipple is... I would consider it on, like, an offshoot of the psychosis spectrum, which maybe in the future we can do a whole series on psychosis.
That's all you.
Everyone will be like, please stop talking about this. So... Schizotipple is very, like, odd. Like, you would describe the person as odd, peculiar, weird almost. That's how...
Wait, we talked about this.
Right. But Schizotipple, there's just, like, an offshoot with psychosis. So, they dress oddly. They talk oddly.
Yeah.
They're just odd. They experience like perceptual disturbances. I don't know if I would call them like full-blown hallucinations, but they'll tell you they can hear like they hear people whispering their name,
like magical.
Yes,
thinking.
That's the big thing. They
or think they have powers.
Right.
Or something.
Yeah. So that's probably the biggest one, and it is very accurate to the people that I've worked with who've been diagnosed with it. Is the magical thinking where you think you can control events or people with your mind, and you can also, it's really. Or like random or like events that don't match mean more than they are. That's sort of like that magical thinking. Like casual, like something casual. Like if you and I were to walk by each other in a store, somebody with Schizotipple would be like, oh, that meant that like I can do, like it's going to rain today or something. Like it just doesn't make sense. They also... Yeah, they dress weirdly, they talk weirdly, they're just odd. And the magical thinking is kind of the offshoot of psychosis. They're not actually psychotic though. They're okay, like they understand what's happening. They're based in reality. It's just that they're so odd that they can't figure it out, and they tend to be more inappropriately, like their emotions are inappropriate. Like you'll be like, oh, somebody in my family died, and they'll just be like, ha 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 ha, like they don't know how to. They don't know how to react in the moment.
But they also they're not aware enough to either.
No. they are really not aware. The people that I've met with it are just, they don't
their world. We are just in it.
Yes, and they
sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're not in it.
No, we're not. It's a very the ones that I've met in the outpatient world, it's definitely like the dressing, oddly, is probably the biggest one that you kind of notice. And then, you know, they'll talk a lot about like tactile stuff, like they feel bugs crawling on them, which you got to also consider like trauma and substance use too. But this is somebody who just doesn't have a lot of friends. I mean, they have social relationships. It's just not as much. They're not like schizoid where they don't have any. They do have some,
and they want
friends, and they want,
and
they can't understand.
But they're just odd ducks, and people don't want to be around them.
Right? They can't understand why. Which the one person I've seen in outpatient, they didn't understand, and they wanted to have social relationships, and they couldn't understand why. And then they would talk about how they could control like the weather with their mind and all sorts of interesting things that it was like, okay. So that's schizotypal. So it's there's a want to socialize, and
which that's what makes it different from the schizoid, who they're like, I don't give a fuck. About
exactly. 100%. So fictional one that I didn't think of and I saw later was Willy Wonka.
That's the one I said.
I didn't even think about that one, and I saw it on the interrupts, and I was like, ooh, that's actually really good. That's a good example. The other one that I saw that I don't know that I agree with was Kramer from Seinfeld. You ever watched Seinfeld?
Oh, I've never watched Seinfeld. So this is your time, Jackie, because you failed me twice. So here it is.
I've never seen Willy Wonka either.
Oh my God.
So Seinfeld, well, he's the neighbor of Jerry Seinfeld. So he
remember he was weird. He was the weird guy.
He didn't like dress weirdly. I mean, he was kind of odd. Eccentric is how I would describe him. I wouldn't describe him as like, I don't know that I agree with the schizotypal.
But I think eccentric is a good.
Yeah, it's like that's how he was. He just
for
was
the basics of what we're talking about.
Right. There was never
the eccentrics.
Right. He never was like thinking he would, I don't know, control people.
Right.
Like that never came up in the show. I don't know. I mean, I could see traits of it in him for sure.
Yeah.
I think sometimes he did odd emotions, odd facial expressions, some of that odd, peculiar, all of that. But also he was just an eccentric guy. He just never, I don't know.
Yeah. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I'm like struggling to find the right word. I mean, I don't want to say odd or weird because that's literally what I said you would, describe somebody as schizotypal, but he was more like eccentric. And he could have he was appropriate in conversations, although sometimes he was a little bit off. On the whole, he was pretty good with social interaction. So
yeah.
I didn't find any that I could, like, I don't know if you've seen any other ones, examples.
No, but I was just thinking, I wonder if, again, kind of the idea, again, not that they would be diagnosed, but what about like Frankie from Grace and Frankie? Like Frankie was kind of that eccentric.
Yeah.
She didn't have, she kind of had this magical thinking sometimes about like crystals and stuff. I think you could argue that it's spiritual beliefs, but
for sure.
I think that would be leading into the realm where she was just like this free spirit, and she was just kind of
Frankie.
me too.
I love that show. I haven't watched the final season yet.
Oh,
but
it's
a good.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
They kind of close it up fast.
Good. Okay. Yeah. No, that's actually good.
But it's kind of like, again, but think of it times 10, right? Because again, when you're talking personality disorders, I mean, again, this is like across their life.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and obviously she had friends and everything.
Yeah.
But it's that eccentric sort of Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus.
Yeah.
Probably dating ourselves, but
I'm
in my very late 20s.
I don't know about you. I'm still like 22. That's not true at all.
But granted, she did have a magical bus, but I think
but it was a legit magical bus. It wasn't like in her mind.
Like, just picture Miss Frizzle comes into your office and she says, "I have this magic bus," and I shrink down and go inside of people's bodies.
You'd be like, "What the
fuck,
I'd be like,
bitch? Do you want to be friends?"
I'd be like, "What are you saying? And why would you want to go?"
But like, that would be the kind of like that. That is a good example of like, if that person came to our office, I probably would be like, "Oh, there's something going on here."
Oh yeah, for sure. No, that's like that. I like, but the Miss Frizzle, I didn't think about that, but yes. Sometimes I think, although I think he fits a lot of them, more so in cluster C, but like Sheldon Cooper in some ways I think is like a cross between schizoid and schizotypal.
Yeah, but he's probably autism spectrum as well, right? You think?
I think
somewhere
so.
in there.
He's a hard one.
Yeah,
I
he's
think
got a little bit of everything.
I think we could have a whole episode dedicated to Sheldon Cooper,
we'll have to
I'm
ponder
sure.
that one.
It's an interesting one, but how about we take a break?
Okay.
And then we'll
take a break.
We'll come back and we'll talk about treatment and some other things. It'll be fun. Okay.
And we're back.
So we're back. And we're here to talk about treatment for personality disorders. What are your thoughts on this, Kyle?
So
the big size is telling.
I don't know specific
treatments
except for cluster B. We'll talk about that next week. But I think I think you can't medicate it. You said that earlier. You cannot. There's no medication that treats.
Yeah, you and I are not doctors or nurses, so
that's true.
The disclaimer,
but you can't.
If you are on medication,
you can sedate them. You can sedate them.
You can medicate some of the symptoms of certain personality disorders, but you cannot you cannot give somebody with a personality disorder Lexapro and expect them to be fine or be different.
We're not condoning Lexapro as
sorry, that was just the example that I gave.
It is a good one though.
It is. There's not a ton out there for we were talking about it before we started recording about how you're really not going to see people typically people with personality disorders aren't going to come willingly to treatment. I don't want to make a blanket generalization, but I mean for the most part
I think especially this cluster, right?
Yeah, you're not going to see, so there's just a lot of it is talk therapy if they feel like something is wrong. I think probably this cluster A and C are probably the most likely to feel like something is wrong and seek treatment for that. Cluster B is not so much, but there's not a whole lot. I don't know of anything like specific, although I do think like schizoid and schizotypal, you could do like social skills training with them about like the relationship building and like developing relationships with other people. But beyond that, there's really like...
Yeah, I think it would just be, I call it insight training, just to like, right, like with Miss Frizzle to be like, okay, Miss Frizzle, I get you have a magic school bus, and I love that, but, Joe Blow on the street does not need to hear that. So maybe we build trust and rapport with somebody, and then we divulge that, hey, I have a magical school bus. I have a magical bus. What do you think?
Shrinks up and goes into people's bodies.
Yeah,
and I think if I, like... I've never actually, like, the people that I've known with schizotypal weren't on my caseload. I've just known them through other therapists on my team. But a lot of it is the same type of thing. It's sort of, who do you talk to? You probably don't want to tell everybody that you can control time with your mind.
No.
And you probably don't want to share, that the TV tells you, or the TV turned on by itself and that means that, you're going to be president or whatever.
Right.
You don't want to talk about that. And surprisingly, most people won't medicate schizotypal because there's really nothing to
unless there's like
medicate because they are reality based, so
again, unless there's kind of like co-occurring issues going on, anxiety, of course that could be, but I think it's just talking through, especially with these, just saying like, okay, we need to find for those, I'm always getting confused, schizoid people who don't want relationships, right, to say, let's find just one person. Who's one person you can call when you're in trouble.
Right, yes.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. So lots of insight training, lots of social skills training. I don't know how you would treat somebody with paranoid PD. I feel like that would be really difficult for the sole purpose that they just don't trust anybody. That would be a lot of like, you would have to do so much rapport building with somebody like that.
Good old
months worth.
CBT, some cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, I guess you could. Yeah, you could do specifically CBT on that.
Some anxiety management.
Yes, I laugh because I'm just thinking of somebody who's very paranoid, like trying to do anxiety work and they can't make it work. That's all I can think about because it would just be too difficult. So, if you had to pick one of these, I know you said you don't have a ton of experience. Which one do you think would be your favorite if you got a client or if you met somebody with this, like who you would want to work with?
I think it would be it'd be Miss Frizzle. Like I want Miss Frizzle to come up here and talk about her magic school bus. Yeah, the schizotypal.
I love that.
To kind of just be like, okay, let's take a step back, right? Like
Yes.
Let's talk about the Magic School Bus. Love that for you. However, let's build some relationships first.
Let's not just tell everybody about
our magic. Let's not just tell everybody. Yeah, let's not tell everyone.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think for me it's a toss up between Schizotypal and Schizoid because I don't know. I identify so much with like not wanting to have relationships with other people. So I'm like, even though I have lots of them,
as you and
married,
I do this podcast, as we're friends, married, as you have an animal, like
yes, yeah. Schizotypal is just the people who have it are just really interesting and really like cool to work with. So I think it's a toss up for me between those two. I think probably I would lean towards more Schizotypal though, because there's a little bit more work you can do. Probably,
yeah. I mean, there's
more you can probably accomplish. So
yeah, because they're motivate, right? Like it's not the Schizoid person is not, or person who has Schizoid is not coming in like being forced by their will by their like mom or something.
Right. Yeah. 100%. If so, in closing of this episode, we've made it through the cluster A's.
We've made it.
Good for us. Pat ourselves on the back for that. If you had to either diagnose yourself, which we're not supposed to diagnose anybody but Kyle and I, will put ourselves on the chopping block for this.
Because that's the pod.
Right. If you had to diagnose yourself with one, which one out of this cluster would you do? Would you be paranoid, schizoid, or schizotypal? Or if you feel like you have more traits and maybe not a full-blown diagnosis. I don't want to like insinuate.
Right. Wow.
Cluster B is going to, I think.
Called out.
I think cluster, I think you and I are going to have like a real like therapy session when it comes to the cluster Bs. It's like, wow.
That's a great question. Do you know? I'd have to
for me.
Yeah. What do you think? I need to ponder.
I think for me,
I know I'm not paranoid.
Yeah, I wouldn't say either of us are in the paranoid realm.
Mm-mm.
I would say, I think for me, I would probably like err on the side of schizoid.
That's what I was gonna say too.
Only because I can understand. I don't feel like I'm cold or indifferent, but like definitely, there are just times that I don't want to have a social. Like I will go off the grid. Like if I could live off the grid, which I think I said in the last episode, I would 100% live off the grid and never be seen. Like that's, and I could be okay being alone, and I would be totally fine with it. 100%.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm odd enough, although I'm sure some people would disagree. I don't feel like I'm odd enough to pull off like any kind of trait of schizotypal. Because I don't really think like I don't have that magical thought. Like I don't have any of that. Like I don't know.
No, I agree. I think I would go with schizoid realm because I have my moments, right, where I'm like, I don't want to deal with people. I don't care about people. They could all die and whatever. I was just I didn't tell you my other person for that was Wednesday Addams.
Oh yeah. Actually, another great example
for like schizoid. But like I have my moments where I'm Wednesday Addams where I'm like, you're all insane. I can't stand any of you.
Right.
I have no emotions on my face. I have no emotions inside. Like you're suffering. Sorry. Like I have those moments.
Kim, there's people that are dying. You like
What's that from?
You don't know that? Oh, you don't watch reality shows. That's very like Kim. There's people dying. So there was an episode of Keeping Up.
Kim Kardashian. Yes. Oh my god.
They were at some very tropical vacation. I can't remember the location. Kim had her diamond earrings on, and she lost one of them and was like full blown having a sobbing fit in the ocean. And Courtney, her older sister, comes out holding one of her kids and is like, "Kim, there's people dying." She couldn't have cared less that she was upset. That's what that reminds me of. Kim, there's people dying.
Oh my god.
That's how like schizoid is. Like Kim, there's people dying.
Talk about personality disorders. Not that we can say that about real people, but what the hell?
We could go on for hours probably about that.
So yeah, I think I'd have to go if I had to diagnose myself, which is so unethical.
You can diagnose yourself.
Well, when you're talking about like our psychopathology class, right? Like I remember the first night our professor literally was like, "Okay, you guys cannot like diagnose yourself. You can't diagnose your friends, and you can't diagnose your family." And we literally all went home and diagnosed ourselves, diagnosed our friends, and diagnosed our family.
Yes.
Like
100%.
Of course.
Yes.
But yeah, I think I'd go the schizoid realm. Yeah. I mean, moments.
100%. I agree. I agree. That's a solid choice.
Well, let's see. As our closing, what do you think conspiracy that you buy into?
Oh.
What do you think? What do you got? Anything?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, I just thought about it. Just one that you're kind of like
you're like side-eye. You're like
it's just right there enough.
The ones that I can think of, I don't believe with like wholeheartedly. Like like these. Like I had a friend of mine who for the longest time, and I think still probably does, and I love him very dearly. He used to tell me that on the back, so like on the back of your social security card, there's a bunch of numbers. And he said that that was tied to like a secret bank account that like you could access if you filed some like specific lawsuit using specific language. Like it was very intricate and detailed, like almost to. And I always wondered, is that true?
Yeah. Oh,
I never looked into it. I was like, I don't want to get into a rabbit hole of whatever this is.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll never forget him describing it to me and saying, like, there's a number and that's a bank account that the government has that's your money. And, like, you can just, and he's the loveliest of people that I know. But I never could fully buy into it. But then sometimes I would sit there and think,
Right. It's like one of those things you're like, well, that's not so out there.
And then I thought if I Googled it, would I end up like on the dark web? And then I never.
Or would the government come get you?
Right. Because I didn't know. And it's true, there's numbers on the back of your social security that are not your social security number. It's like it's a random set of numbers.
I'll have to look at that.
So yeah. What about you? Is there one that
I don't know if this is, I think it's a conspiracy theory. I think that like ancient Egyptians, like all of these ancient, like Mesopotamia, I think they were visited by aliens.
What makes you think that?
It just seems just seems so weird. Like, just how did they build all this shit? How did they build Stonehenge? Like, we have gigantic machinery that like builds these buildings, and we still struggle to get it up. Like,
true, yeah.
How did they do it?
I feel like for them though, there wasn't as much extra stuff around. You know, like there wasn't technology. Like they had to do it very specifically to get it done. I do agree with you. I wonder about like some of the intricacies of like all of that. That's interesting.
Like the pyramids, like they're in a very specific place.
I mean, we
like,
can get into like alien talk. Like sometimes I really think I think some about this stuff very deeply, and I wonder.
Maybe we are schizotypal.
Everyone who's listening right now,
they're going, not so sure.
Are Kyle and Jackie okay today?
No, we aren't.
The answer is no. We are not okay.
The answer is always no.
Right. The answer is always no. That's interesting.
But yeah, and like things like where the pyramids were like big generators. Hell yeah, absolutely down for it.
Yeah,
I believe that shit.
I think one of the biggest conspiracies that I about who shot JFK.
Like a time traveler. You heard that one?
Yes, I've heard that one. I don't know though. I feel like if you were gonna do that, you wouldn't pick such a specific. Like you would want to be discreet. No.
And maybe there are other targets that are more appropriate.
Right. Like
I won't name names. You fill in the blank.
You
yourself, listener.
Put whoever you would like into that blank spot.
Personally, I would choose someone else.
Same. I always think about that too, like some of those like really famous, like who shot JFK and some of those other things. But yeah, I really think for me it's that social security thing that I'm always.
I'm gonna go find my social security card.
It was I can't remember. This was like years ago when he told me about it, but it was very intricate and very detailed. That I always have wondered if there was some truth to it. So I like that.
We'll see.
That was the cluster A's.
Cluster A's.
So next time we'll do cluster B's.
And that it's gonna be juicy. That's the one everybody's probably wanting.
Yes, that's the one. So we will catch you at the next one, and it will be fun, and we will have a great time.
We'll have a great time. I think.
I think you and I maybe we may or may not have a breakdown by the end of it when we have to just diagnose ourselves. But we will cross that bridge when we get there.
Right. That's not a now problem.
That's a future.
That's
Kyle
a future.
And Jackie
Yeah. That's their responsibility.
Exactly. Well,
everyone take care of yourself out there in this post America Gilead rule that we have.
Yes, please do, and we will see you next time.
We'll see you next week.